voices rise. Richie and John, we're here to surprise. Freedom and pride, we're living out loud, celebrating our community with a vibrant crowd. Freedom and equality, let it be clear. Being who you are, a fun, frisky, and out loud queer. From Mutual Broadcasting, we're breaking free. Living our truth, just you listen and see.
From the Mutual Broadcasting System, this is the voice of LGBTQ plus news and life-focused content. The Richie and John podcast. No bullshit, just reality for the community and allies around the globe. Here are your hosts, infinitely wiser, smarter and kinder than everyone in the Trump administration. Combined. Definitely uncensored, even if they are not uncut. Richie Roy and John McMullen. Give 'em hell, boys.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Richie and John. It is a substantial Saturday. It is the day after the 4th of July. So hopefully everyone still has all their fingers. And your dog has emerged from under the bed. And you are with us on a Saturday. So we are here, of course, with John McMullen, my wonderful co-host, and the wonderful Todd Bianco, our regular automotive expert. Todd, hello.
Hello, it's nice to be here.
And
you know
Todd,
what?
I believe
I
you're...
have to tell you that I was looking through our backlog or our catalog actually of shows, and Todd was here exactly 1 year ago this week with us.
Oh, no way.
Yes. So we were talking about cars and EVs exactly 1 year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's changed in a year, has it?
Nothing at all. No
Not
way.
at all. Well, the big ugly bill passed this week, and I'm sure that has some impact on vehicles, whether it be from the issue with our getting ready to deal with the, the fees, the
Tariffs,
or dealing with various issues where the president doesn't want to look at green energy related vehicles in the same positive light as those of us who are on Earth One. So there's probably a lot to talk about in there.
There is.
he doesn't want to look at green energy at all, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like the solar subsidies are bye-bye as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's it is drill baby drill. Let's make people mandatorily go get coal out of the ground. He's living in this kind of like early 20th century robber baron movie of his own, in his mind, where it's just not reflective of the modern reality, because people generally, I think, I know in states, for instance, where they have hydroelectric power, they love alternative sources of energy because their energy is cheap as hell.
So do even red states like Texas. They have a lot of solar and a lot of wind energy. I mean, a lot. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what he's thinking, but yeah, I think that's something that you should let the market sort out as well. But frankly, it's much cheaper to have solar and wind these days than it is to have coal or build even a new natural gas fired plant. It's just cheaper. Plus, with battery backups being sold all over the world, which it's not just Tesla. There are other companies that sell these gigantic battery installations that are backup for when something happens or there's a peak energy, that instead of firing up an entire power plant, you have a battery backup that works instead. And that works very well. West Australia has been doing it for years now. They like it so much they keep putting more in there. And this is Australia. This is far, far, far away from the United States. It's not the political issue there, but it's saved them so much money from having the peak power being mitigated by having these gigantic battery installation backups, which are part of this whole ecosystem with not just electric cars, but with solar panels and with everything else that's renewable. It makes sense to have that. But I don't know what we're going to be doing here in the United States. I have no idea. Part of it is tied into the mandate for, not mandate, but the credit for buying an electric car goes away on September 30th now because the bill was signed. And that means I'm sure that this is going to juice temporarily the sale of EVs, the ones that qualify for the $7,500 credit for the next 3 months. Up until September 30th. After that, I don't know what's going to, I'm sure they're going to say that, it's falling off the cliff. It's just a matter of what the incentives are. If the incentives go away, I'm sure that sales will go down. But the trend is up no matter how you look at it. It certainly will fall off after September 30th of 2025 when the credits go away.
And to be clear, none of it really it's actually not rational. It's actually sort of anti-business in a way, because there is a move towards EVs, and having this credit makes people want to buy things, which is an incentive, which makes people buy stuff, in the same way that the Trump administration got rid of the Energy Star certification on appliances, and manufacturers begged them to keep it. Environmentalists begged them. It was a huge money maker for everyone involved. It led people towards better choices. It was good for consumers because it got their energy costs down. It had manufacturers leading people to sometimes maybe more expensive products that people chose to buy because it was certified. It was a win-win-win. But because it had a whiff of green about it, the Trump administration got rid of it, even though no one wanted it gone.
That's right. It's people, just going through Consumer Reports or any of these other consumer-related magazines or whatever, they all say that people want energy-efficient appliances. And the only way you can tell if they're energy efficient or not is to see if they go through the certification process, because it's the certification process for everything. Whether it's a juiced up process or not, at least they all have to go through the same process, and they know what the certification says about them. If I buy a new refrigerator today, I would like it to be energy efficient, right?
Yeah.
If I buy a new air conditioning system, I would like it to be more energy efficient because these things cost me real money. Mm-hmm. I would think it's a win-win for everybody. And by the way, it also makes the appliance makers compete to make their products more energy efficient so that they can, gives them bragging rights when they advertise. And they wouldn't be bragging about it if it wasn't something that they knew consumers were looking for.
You know what I want to be green? I want Donald Trump to have gangrene.
Well, and to go to the mandate thing, or to, Energy Star, another example of the sort of carrot and stick in terms of energy efficiency is light bulbs, because, there's this certain very grouchy, Trump and kind of right-wing thing for years has been, they took away our incandescent light bulbs. Let's bring back the old light bulb, Edison, blah, blah, blah. And not for years, but for a time, I understood a little bit about that sentiment because the options were at that time mainly compact fluorescent light bulbs, which were not nice to look at.
No, they weren't.
But because they phased out those bulbs, there was the move to LED, which now LED has beautiful light rendition.
It does.
And is a fraction of the energy cost. The bulbs last longer. So, it was, I think, were it not for the kind of carrot and stick of phasing out incandescent high wattage bulbs, we wouldn't have probably ended up with LED bulbs because there wouldn't have been a market for them. But now, it sort of goes to show that when you use all of those different techniques, you can lead towards better products that are cheaper and better for the environment that people prefer.
Right. All the light bulbs that I've bought recently at Home Depot or at Lowe's, they all are now adjustable for the
color,
the hue,
temperature,
bright white or not as bright. But it's actually on the light bulb now, as opposed to even selecting. They don't even need you to bother to buy one or the other. You can buy one type and you just twist it or put it a little, move a little switch and it automatically changes the hue of the light bulb. And also it used to be that you couldn't get an LED, you couldn't get anything to replace one of the, like a flickering flame or, a specialty type of light bulb. That's changed as well, but that came about because of these regulations. So, thank you, regulations, for that. And I go back to this, that they're trying to take away California's mandate for, regulating emissions. I'm old enough to remember California when it was really, really, really bad. We had smog alert days. They would have on the weather forecast, part of it was how bad the smog was going to be. The next day or whatever. On the playground when I was a kid, we actually had to come inside because the air was so unhealthy that, you felt it in your lungs. It was terrible. So California took it upon itself to do these regulations because of the size of the state, because of what it had. Now, thank you. The rest of the country can thank us for making the air clean everywhere, because without us doing these kinds of mandates that we've had for over 40 years here in California, the air wouldn't be clear in lots and lots and lots of other cities who now are just used to having fairly clean air. And it's because of the, green mandates that California put on these cars, and now they want to take that away too. But that's not going to stop people from buying electric cars. That's not going to stop people from wanting cleaner cars. I don't know what they're going to, what's going to happen with that, but I know it's going to be in litigation, but who knows what it is. But these are the kind of things that have made a huge difference, even in a place like Oklahoma or Missouri or Detroit. We've made the cars more efficient, better in the long run. Sure, there was the malaise era of the 70s and some terrible stuff that came out of Detroit in the 80s. But out of that, we got some terrific Japanese products. And in order for everybody to compete, they all had to get better. That's what competition does. But if you have to have a set of rules that everybody plays by, and once you have that, people can then play to that rule. In other words, they can come up, they can lift their game to be. Now, most cars today are fairly clean and they're efficient and they get pretty decent fuel economy. And there's lots of new electric cars that are coming out all the time, which we wouldn't have had. Now, we don't have Chinese electric cars here, but there are Chinese electric cars in Mexico. There's Chinese electric cars in Canada, and there's Chinese electric cars in Europe and in all sorts of other places. China has learned. They're very smart there, and they play the long game. Basically, China failed at the internal combustion era, but that's over. In their minds, if you go to China, that's over. They don't care about internal combustion cars anymore. They're focused on EVs, and they have a lot of domestic brands that are extremely good, very efficient, very sophisticated software-defined cars that we don't have here yet because of our tariffs. But they are setting the bar that everybody in the rest of the world has to compete with.
Let me ask this question. In light of the big ugly bill that was passed this past week, what is the long-term ramifications of what we lose as a result of that with regards to EVs?
I think that the long-term ramifications are that we're going to have there's going to be a reduction in demand, obviously, for the next few years. I still think it's going to ramp up. I don't think that Californians and other states are going to just throw away their EVs and go back to a big pickup truck with a V8. I think once you've driven electric, it's very hard to go back to internal combustion. All three of us have electric cars. I have a Tesla, John, you have a Nissan, and Richie, you have a Rivian. Would you go back now?
Not on your life.
No way.
I mean, once you've driven these cars that are powerful, quiet, software-defined, efficient, and once you've understood how you can charge the cars at home and all those kinds of things, it's very difficult to then say,
I've got to tell you, I have to tell you, I was just driving down to Palm Desert the other day from Palm Springs, and I had a Karen in a big old Ford 50,
Diesel?
and she was going to get the jump on me from the line when that light turned green. And I let her take off, and about 3 seconds later, I was in front of her by about 4 car lengths. And I was just like, eat it, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it'll be slower without the incentives there. And, without other sorts of building out the infrastructure. I don't think Tesla's going to stop building out infrastructure. But if they kill all the stuff that they had in the previous bills from the Biden administration about building out charging infrastructure, it's going to slow people's adoption. But I don't think Tesla's going to slow their rollout of their supercharger network. But starting in 2025, most cars are adopting what they call the North American Charging Standard, which is the Tesla plug. And once you're able to go to a Tesla supercharger and plug in a Tesla supercharger, you'll know that it's faster. I think you've done that, Richie?
Yeah, I have the adapter.
Yeah.
And they're very good chargers. They tend to be properly located. That they are usually near like a service station or a little restaurant or a bathroom. So they're in good places. They're plentiful. They're usually uptime is great. They're not broken.
Right.
And so, yeah, it is a great charging infrastructure compared to some of the other alternatives.
Right. Have you started to use it yet, John, or is it?
No, I refuse to spend the money to buy the adapter, and I refuse to spend any money with anybody who might own X.
Yeah, it's sort of become a cesspool. But that's going to slow overall adoption, I think.
But I will say that my house closes next weekend, and the minute that's done, I am putting solar on the roof and going to replace the infrastructure at my home, so I will be able to generate my own, at least when I'm at home. And I don't travel that big of a distance anywhere anyway, unless I'm going on a long road trip, in which case I would use a network of chargers. But right now, I have lived fully within my means, being on just a trickle charge with 120 at home.
That's
so it has not made a noticeable difference in my energy bill. So I'm on a level pay anyway, because we want to, of course, not pay a shit ton during the summer for electricity for air conditioning and so on. So we balance it out over the course of the whole year, and it's just really been negligible. I can tell you this. I love the fact that I have not had to deal with a gas station in 8-9 months, and
no oil changes.
No oil changes, and it's such a convenience to do things this way, and it does not make me break down and cry ever.
I think once people have made the switch, it's very hard to go back. I still think there's going to be, for a long time, there's going to be sales of internal combustion engine cars. I think that there's plenty of areas of the country that they need or want their huge pickup trucks. Most of them don't really need them. I mean, Texas, I'm looking at you, that generally you don't have to have those, but there's a lot of people that just have them because that's the image. Is that the right word? Image that they want to portray, that they're in a big pickup truck and this is what they want. But wow, is it expensive to fill them up? I know that
that's not going to get cheaper.
No, well,
it's not doing anything to reduce the cost of taking and maintaining and operating those combustion engine vehicles.
And these are trucks are getting more and more expensive all the time. I follow like the Ford F-150 or Ram just said for 2026 that they're bringing back the Hemi V8. Okay, good. And people are just thrilled and happy. And those sales are, way up. But these trucks are starting in the 60s and, going up into the high 90s.
Yeah.
for these, these very
I'm going to
fancy.
spend that kind of money. I'm going to buy the vehicle that Richie bought.
Yeah. Well,
No, I am. I'm not being funny about that. I would buy a much more, should I say, luxurious version of what I've got.
Well, it's a software-defined car. The difference is these are software-defined cars now, and software-defined means it's how well are the software systems that run the car, because that's what these things are now. And I think that when Rivian comes out with the R2, which I still have one on order, but I don't know whenever that's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the R2 is the smaller version of what Richie has. Richie has the R, which is the SUV version, right? The R1T is the pickup truck version of the Rivian.
Well, I saw a Rivian just yesterday on the road that was this color of blue that I love, and I want that vehicle. But I'm going to have to wait a while.
Well, the
up my pennies.
The R2 will be in the $50,000 range. That's my guess. Is they originally said 45. My guess is in the $50,000 range. But these days, a Toyota Highlander is $50,000 if you've priced it. I mean, a Toyota Highlander is a very good car. I have nothing against it. It's a terrific. It's been proven to be a good car. It's very popular. Same thing with the Toyota Tacoma. These are very popular pickup, trucks, whatever. Nothing against it, but they're not cheap either. I mean, a Toyota 4Runner is $50,000 or more now. So all of these trucks that used to be affordable are now all over $50,000. I mean, the average transaction price is around $49,000 now in the United States. That's the average transaction price. And when some of these tariffs hit, it's going to go up. I just got a raise in my insurance rates. My insurance was renewed on July 1st. So I got whacked with an insurance rate increase at that time. But of course, part of that is because the parts are now subject to a 25% tariff. And many of those parts are coming from, pick a country, it doesn't really matter whether it's coming from Taiwan or Japan or China or Germany or England, wherever it's coming from, 25% extra is going to mean that if you have an accident or whatever, that some of those parts that they're going to use, there's going to be a 25% increase in cost of that. Not every part necessarily, but some of the parts that almost anybody uses in their car. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Tesla that's mostly made in the United States or whether it's a Nissan, which much of that, like your Aria, is probably made in Japan. Whatever that is, some of those parts are coming from somewhere else, not from the United States. And so all the insurance rates are going to, when you start having it go up, people are going to notice that the insurance rates are going up too. So that's not, this is a reality of what's happening with these crazy tariffs that have no bearing of reality to anything. These parts, these things are not going to be made they're not going to start making them here in the United States.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. I just got done reading a book about Apple in China. Oh my God, it is not coming back here. I mean, the assembly of the iPhone, it's not happening. I mean, basically, China and Apple are very intertwined, and they really aren't going to separate themselves from this. There is this gigantic ecosystem of suppliers all around all of these iPhone factories, which Apple owns nothing. Apple just sends their engineers out to train people, but there's like 1,000 different little suppliers that are all coming together to make that iPhone happen. It's not coming back. Similarly, there's many parts of components of a car. They're not going to just suddenly snap their fingers and make factories appear here in the United States. He's getting rid of the CHIPS Act, or trying to kill that. Let's talk about that, because chips are very, very, very important to any modern car. It doesn't matter whether it's an EV or whether it's an ICE car. There's chips that run every little part of your car these days, and many of those chips are coming from not just China, not just some in the United States, but TSMC, which is the big chip maker it's the biggest in the world. They're in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. They were going to open what's it called, a fab. They were going to open a fab in Arizona, but now that's in question because of their taking away these incentives. But we wanted TSMC to come to the United States. We wanted them to open to open up business here because where they are in Taiwan, if China takes action against Taiwan, the guy who owns TSMC is going to essentially blow up the factory. He won't let China take it. I mean, we're talking about multi-billion dollars of fabrication that goes on at these places.
Can I ask something?
He doesn't want China to get a hold of it, but why wouldn't we want them to open in the United States?
How can one human being have so much destruction of everything that matters on Earth? Our environment, our economy, our supply chain. I mean, how is this person still alive?
He's been enabled.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I don't think we have much. Reality is that Congress has completely abdicated their authority. He has no real authority to do these tariffs because these are supposed to be emergency, national security related. Only at that point, Congress could have slapped it down at any time, and they did not. The courts have simply said he has all power to do whatever he wants, whether it's, no one stopped him from doing the tariffs. No one stopped him from doing any of the immigration things that are going on. No one stopped any of that thing.
I thought we had some serious laws against treason.
Well, when you're immune from those laws, it apparently means that you can do whatever you want because he's been immunized, as far as I understand from ruling from their last term, is that said that, he's essentially, if he considers it an official act, it's therefore immune from prosecution.
Bullshit.
Well, but they're the end.
I know. They're the
I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
I don't have a good answer for that, but Congress could have stopped. Congress could have said at any time, this is bad for business. You're not this, you don't have the authority of this act from, 30 years ago or whatever it was. You don't have the authority to just slap tariffs on everybody for everything. They could have done it, but they didn't. And now the problem is we have businesses, and this is across all categories of business, but especially in the car business, where they simply cannot switch, overnight a factory. If they're making a transmission in Mexico, they can't just say, oh, we're going to make that tomorrow in Detroit. They can't. It's a multi-year thing. They're going to wait it out because they think it's ridiculous. So they prefer to wait it out because they figure he's only got another 3.5 years. That's where I think that's where businesses are looking at it at this point, because they don't want to make a long-term investment when these things could change or go away at any time based on the whim of one person. So that's how I read what businesses are doing.
I think this is all the more reason why we need to encourage everybody who listens to this program and everybody who they know that listens to them or has a conversation with them to try and hold people, or not hold them, but pull them back from a position of apathy around voting, because the midterms could save us a lot of grief. It's going to kick in now, some of it. A lot of it doesn't kick in until after the midterm elections. Mm-hmm. And they're hoping that people will have forgotten once again what they're feeling right now, and that's how this will happen. But at the midterms, we have a chance to really turn this around and put roadblocks in the way and remove and replace this legislation. If we remember what's happening right now and get these scoundrels out of public office who have enabled this. So it's very important, not just if you like your green vehicles and green energy and a green future, but, if you value your life, and especially in the LGBTQ community, you're fucked if we don't stop this. So you have to be involved. You cannot sit back on the sidelines or sit on your hands and not say and do something about this. Right now, it feels like it's hopeless, but it's not if you vote. And supposedly, we're still going to have an election in November of 2026. So again, back to that. I do want to come back, though, to our main topic, and I was excited to see, Todd. I purchased an Aria from Nissan, and I had a friend who also had purchased one about, 6-8 months earlier, and he, prior to that, had one of Nissan's little get-about town cars, their Leaf, which you couldn't really go very far or, do very much with. It was, kind of like the old Nissan Civic.
Right. But
the Honda Civic. And so I was really excited to see that Nissan and their conglomerate of manufacturers are really committed to the EV game now, and that they're actually going to do something new with sheet metal when it comes to the Leaf in 2026.
Right. The new Leaf looks terrific. It's morphed into a little SUV now, which it wasn't before, and it's got a better range. It's going to be affordable. Approximately between 35 and 41,000 was what I'd read about.
Storage space. Yeah.
More. Yeah. Obviously, a smaller SUV is at the heart of the market, at least in the United States, and I think a lot of the world, even Europe, wherever else they're going to be sold, that a lot of people are looking for an SUV format. I like to be able to go to the grocery store or to a bigger store and stuff as much possible into the back of a car, and you need sort of an SUV form to do it. Now, it's not an off-road vehicle, and most people are not taking their SUVs off-road. Now, yes, you can, but most aren't. I mean, Rivian is made for that, but I mean, as far as most people are not taking their Nissan Rogue or their Tesla Model Y or whatever it is, they're not taking them off-road, but they're for handy runaround cars for busy people who want enough storage space for going to Costco or whatever else at this time.
Or taking the family to grandma's house.
Right, exactly. But I think that the new Nissan Leaf is finally in a format that people want. It looks a whole lot nicer than it did before. Nissan is part of people may not realize it, but Nissan is part of a worldwide conglomerate of its.
Is it Mitsubishi and Renault?
Renault and Mitsubishi are all together in this.
Right.
They're all part of this alliance. So they can use each other's platforms and they can use each other's software. I mean, they can share these things. And the whole idea it's a weird sort of a Japanese form of doing things. Toyota owns a lot of they're not subsidiaries, but they're affiliates. Like Aisin is their big transmission affiliate, and they own enough of Subaru, so Subaru and Toyota share things, and Daihatsu, and there's many other things within the Toyota orbit, but they're not necessarily subsidiaries of Toyota. And in that sort of format, they own cross-own shares of each other. So Nissan owns shares in Renault owns shares in Nissan, and Mitsubishi's part of this little, conglomerate to sort of, so they can share, basically technology, platforms, engines, those kinds of things. And so hopefully Nissan will be using more of these things, because Renault has lots more EVs in Europe, because this is what Europe wants. So they can, trade on some of that technology to help themselves and to grow their portfolios to sell, in the United States and other locations.
Speaking of Subaru,
I was just reading, though, because I'm curious about this, that Nissan has been delaying payments to suppliers because they are running out of cash. And I believe I heard a while back there was like sort of talk of maybe Nissan getting acquired. So, I mean, Nissan Leaf, the new one sounds great. Will Nissan be around in a year to make this car?
Well, yes, but it depends on whether they're going to be on their own or whether they're going to be owned by Honda. Because it was going to be like a forced marriage. Honda's going to acquire you because you don't have enough cash to pay your bills. Mm-hmm. So Nissan is doing everything they can to cut costs right now so that they can survive on, as the alliance that they currently have, which is between Renault and Mitsubishi.
But would that be the worst thing in the world to have a Nissan and Honda alliance?
No, Honda has money and Honda has engineering expertise. It wouldn't be a bad thing per se, but Japan Inc., which is the sort of, again, it's a very weird cultural thing in Japan. They don't like it. It's kind of like a forced thing. They would do it because they would want to save Japanese ownership of Nissan couldn't go to anything other than a Japanese company.
I see.
So it would have to stay Japanese. It's just it's a very, very cultural thing. Here in the United States, nobody seems to care. But in Japan,
Just don't be from Mexico.
It could not
If
happen.
you are, then don't tell anybody that's where the parts are made.
Right. It couldn't happen. So yeah, I just don't know if that's going to happen at this point. But I do think that they would have cash one way or another to bring Leaf to market. It looks like it's ready right now. In other words, it looks like it's production ready. So I think that they're ready to do it now. It's just that the EV, getting rid of the credits and whatever else, that's going to hurt the demand, I think, for any EVs. So after the 30th of September, you're going to see a plunge in EV demand because of that. It'll pick up again, but it may take another quarter or two for people to start, going back to buying that. But, and they'll say, oh, it's the end of EVs. It's not going to be the end of EVs, but it is going to, it's going to juice sales up until the 30th, and then sales are going to, plummet after that because of that.
See, I started to mention earlier, you mentioned Subaru, and I saw that there is a reworking of the WRX for those people who like the little speedsters. Do you have any detail on that?
I don't. I know that people love the little WRX. It's basically the STI is the fast version of the WRX. They haven't been selling the STI here in the United States. They just sell the WRX. We will see if they sell the new WRX STI here. I don't think they're going to. I think the problem is that the market for that is a very slim market. I believe they're only made in Japan as well. I don't think they're made here. So they're going to be, not only is there a small number of people who want it, it would probably be subject to tariffs at a fairly high rate. I don't know whether it's the full 25% or a portion of that, but my guess is that if those are going to be manufactured in Japan, which I think they are, that they would be, more expensive. And if you start adding 25% to a $1,000 little car, it gets expensive. And so it's already a small number of people who want it as compared to the Forester or the Outback wagon, which are their big sellers. I don't know what's going to happen with it. And again, I think a lot of that is part of that problem is the tariffs and what's going to happen with it. Because I think there's always going to be a market for that. I think there's always going to be people who want it. The question is there a big enough market for them to bring it here? Because it's expensive to homologate it here and, make sure it meets all U.S. requirements.
Has Subaru maintained its really positive marketing relationship to the LGBT market?
I think so. I still see lesbians driving them.
A company that hasn't done such a good job of keeping anyone interested is Jaguar. I just read an article that last year, for June, I think last year in June, they sold 2,000 cars across Europe. This year in June, they sold 49 cars.
Holy smokes.
in the European market.
Are you
49?
Okay, well, they don't have any cars to sell. No, I mean, they stopped making them. They just stopped.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
right, there's only one Jaguar for sale right now in the United States, and it's an SUV. So the reality is that they were doing a reboot of the brand to make it all expensive.
And the reboot also is generally getting kind of drubbed in terms of just the look and feel. It is like they've changed their logo. It's now this kind of like Blippo font that looks like something that would be on a cosmetics carrier. The actual Jaguar itself is nowhere to be seen. I don't know exactly what they're doing there, but people aren't super excited about it.
We've only seen some concepts from Jaguar. We've seen the new brand logo. The Leaping Jaguar seems to be gone. We've seen some test mules out in the wild, but we haven't seen the actual car yet. So we'll see. But right now, it looks like it's a big, expensive electric sedan, which isn't the core of the market right now.
I mean, Mercedes, if I'm not wrong, Mercedes has the EQSs sitting around and no one wants those.
Right. They'll sell here in California, or they'll lease here in California. But the EQS is not as popular as the SUV version of the EQS or
Right.
the EQE version. Those are at least moving, but those are kind of overpriced, so they have to lease them at a good rate, is what it really comes down to.
Has Mercedes finally reached that point where they're basically just an expensive bucket of bolts, like, other brands that have, like Jeep? Like, you're going to spend forever, you're going to spend 3 times what you paid for the vehicle in maintenance and just putting it back together.
I would be curious, you might be right. I would be curious to know what the rate is of purchase versus lease. My guess is that the lease rate is through the roof, that people are leasing these cars for 3 or 4 years, never longer than the warranty. Same with BMW, just because these cars nobody wants to have once the warranty is up, because they're very expensive to repair. So I think what they're doing is they're artificially inflating the resale value for lease purposes, but they own the leasing companies. They all own the leasing companies, so they just eat it on the end when the car comes back off of lease, and it goes back to the dealer to release to somebody else as a certified pre-owned Mercedes or BMW or whatever else. Jaguar, on the other hand, they literally stopped making all their cars. They sold whatever the remaining I-Paces that they had to Waymo. Waymo is outfitting them with $60,000 worth of sensors to become robo-taxis, and they are rebooting all of Jaguars in the new look of, we will see. It's gotten generally terrible reaction from the press and from automotive enthusiasts, where they think that Jaguars basically squandered their entire, whatever goodwill there was in the brand, whatever cachet there was in the brand.
Didn't they lose all that basically when Ford owned them?
Ford did a very good job of destroying them. But when they were purchased by the Tata Group of India, which is who owns them now, they purchased Jaguar Land Rover, which is which is what they own now. And Land Rover is making all the money because they're big, overpriced SUVs that are all leased. They're all leased too. Either that, or they're just they're purchased by somebody's production company, and every 2 years they get a new one. And of course, they're never used for business purpose whatsoever, but I'm sure they're written off 100%. That is what I'm sure is happening. But very few people are buying and holding Land Rovers because the tech inside them is not good, and the repair bills are astronomical. They are at the absolute bottom of the repair chain, as far as, the reliability.
Todd, if there's
I think they look good, but that's what's selling. People are buying, Land Rover products.
Todd, if there's one headline remaining that people should know about right now with regards to automotive stuff, and as we're going into this, the summer, with regards to cars and trucks and everything that's going on with our economy and so on, what do they need to know?
I think they need to check first to see what's happening with the prices of anything they're looking at, to see if tariffs have hit yet for any of the products that they're looking for. And we have to be careful, because if tariffs hit and prices go up by 10 or 15%, we're already looking at really unaffordable cars, which means that the used market is going to be impacted, because people want used cars because they're cheaper. But if that happens, those prices are going to rise too. So watch what you're looking for, because at some point, the cost of buying a new will almost be the same as buying a used car, depending on what happens with this. But I think you'd have to check on whatever model it is, whether it's a 2025 or 2026. There may be a difference in tariffs, which have already hit whatever's coming into the ports now. And it depends. Some car companies can kind of absorb it, but others may not be able to. So I would check to see what's happening very carefully first, and be careful when you go to any dealer, because they're going to try to screw you one way or another. I mean, dealers are notorious for that. So
should we all just go buy an e-bike?
they're terrific, except when it's 110 outside. But I like an e-bike. And by the way, those should be subsidized. If they're going to subsidize something, subsidize an e-bike. Give people a $500 rebate for buying an e-bike, because that's a whole lot better than buying a car at this point. But they're not subsidizing that market either. But I would be very careful about anything that I would buy right now. There could be some deals out there, and I know that there's going to be a lot of really good deals that are going to be pushed before the end of this quarter, especially for EVs. But for regular cars, for ICE cars, watch for the tariffs, because the tariffs could very well impact what you're looking at. And if you can buy a pre-tariff car, better. If you buy one after that, okay. Oh, and one other thing. I believe that in the big, beautiful bill, there is going to be some deduction allowed for the interest on car loans. So that might help some people, but it's still not enough. I mean, if you're only paying at a 10 or 15% tax rate, overall rate, it may not be worth that much if you have $10,000 of interest expense. And if you have $10,000 of interest expense on a car loan, what did you buy? I mean, but I think it sounds good, but I don't think it's going to be worth that much to somebody if they can just deduct the interest on a car loan. It might help some people, but, plan for it for 2020. But I don't know. For right now, everything is sort of in flux, and the tariffs could very well impact whatever you're going to buy. If you could buy a pre-tariff car, get that. But watch out for dealers taking advantage of it, saying, well, the new car is $5,000 more, so we're going to charge X more for the car. So watch out. Consumer beware. Use all your internet tools. Know exactly what it is before you go in there. Do it. Even if you just talk with the internet sales manager, make sure that you have exactly what you want. The color, the option packages, and get them to give you a firm price before you go in. That's
Sounds
what I
like
would.
Today is a better time than ever to be a member or join Consumer Union or Consumer Reports, especially when you're talking about things even being affected, like the Energy Star rating and those kinds of things.
They'll help with that. They'll have some good ratings on any product that you buy, including cars. They have some fairly, they have fair reports on all the various cars. They buy them themselves and they test them. They're not beholden to anybody per se. For the reviews. I just think I think we need to be really good consumers right now and really watch out for what's happening. And the whole thing in car land is in flux because of the tariffs and what's happening in Washington, and everybody's still very nervous about making any decisions business-wise.
Well, Todd, thank you for joining us this week on our Substantial Saturday edition of Richie and John. It's been a pleasure to have you, as usual. And Richie, I will see you again on Newsday Tuesday.
Yep, definitely. All right, well, have a great weekend, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Richie and John is a production of the United America Network, a division of the Mutual Broadcasting System. Opinions expressed are those of the hosts and their guests. If you have a problem with it, bugger off.
Freedom and equality, let it be clear. Being who you are, fun, frisky, and out loud queer. From Mutual Broadcasting, we're breaking free. Living our truth, just you listen and see. Living our truth, just you listen and see.